All right, so hello, everybody. This is the Finance Committee meeting for June 22nd. Thank you all for attending. In keeping with an act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, as amended by Governor Baker on February 12th, 2022, this meeting will be conducted remotely over Zoom. Attendance by board commission members will be remote, and remote attendance shall count towards quorum. The meeting will be broadcast live and recorded on ECAT. This is probably the last one of these that we can only do exclusively on Zoom, unless there's another extension. So just FYI to everyone. So we might be meeting all in person for the next one. But the other benefit of today is that since this is generally one of the last ones on the calendar before most people start to do vacations and there's summer and whatnot, there's usually not a lot of pressing issues that we need to jump back into. So we shall see. Mileage varies, but we'll give it a shot. So with that, let's do a down the list proclamation that we are all here. I'm just going to go down the order of people as they show on my screen. DiNardo.
DiNardo is here.
DePietro.
DePietro's here.
Diaz.
Diaz present.
Olson.
Olson here.
Lamb.
Lamb here.
Mosi.
Timothy Mosi present.
They keep moving around. And Helen. Did I miss anybody? Helen is here. I think it's everybody, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, okay. All right, so let's make this quick and easy. So first and foremost, the first thing was the subcommittees and the various different boards that we're associated with. It's sort of a two-parter. Kelly, I reached out to earlier today, and she asked if I could resend or reshare the departmental assignments. That has been reshared. Some of you do not have. I don't have Gmail or Google associated accounts for you, so I sent it to the account that we actually, or whatever the email account is that's aligned to you guys. You can open it whenever you need to. You can open it anonymously. It's just the departmental assignments. So that is the reminder of which cluster you guys are aligned to as far as departments for an outreach and engagement discussion. Those of you that have been here for a while know what that's like. But essentially, hey, you can go after and start to communicate with them and just introduce yourself and make sure you understand who's who and what's going on. But then at the same time, oh, sorry, was there a question?
Yeah, it's Brian. I didn't get that note.
I just sent it as we were starting, so you should be getting.
Fair enough.
It might be floating around in there right now.
No, I thought it was earlier today.
Nope, no, just now. Secondarily, the FinCom does have representatives that are appointed, 1 to audit, 2 to budget, and 1 to capital planning. In conversations with everybody, I think everybody wants to stay with their existing assignment. I lost my note that I had. Wait, it's, oh God, this is. But as of last time, we had 1 audit, 2 budget, 1 capital, like I said. If I pull up our current state,
Patrick,
as of last time.
Sorry, I think there's 2 for the school planning committee as well.
Yes, that one's a little different though. And I don't understand exactly, like I have been sort of in the dark on it, but I'm going to reach out and ask on the next one. But that one, typically they appoint. I don't know that we have to reappoint every July, but it's a good question. I'll make a note of that.
Very well, thank you.
Good call. So Kelly is currently the FinCom rep for the audit committee. Shireen and Michael are for the budget subcommittee, and Christina is for the capital planning committee. Now, let me see. Yeah. So I've talked to all of you. We had a quick discussion about this at the last meeting, essentially a preamble. Let's see if this is going to be something valuable, if you guys are going to stay where you are, etc. It looks like everybody wants to stay where they are. So with that, if there's no objections, we can just vote the entire slate back, and then I can just do the paperwork to reappoint everyone with a voice vote. If there's any objections to that, I'm happy to open it. But if not, I see Mike just came on camera, so he's about to make a motion as I'm speaking.
Move to approve the entire slate. DePietro.
There it is.
Diaz second.
All right, let's go down the list. DiNardo.
DiNardo, yes.
Mosi.
Mosi's yes.
Olson.
Olson, yes.
Lamb.
Lamb, yes.
DePietro.
DePietro, yes.
and Diaz.
Diaz is yes.
And the last bit of business for the appointment piece is the chair and vice chair, of which I'm looking at all of you and waiting for one of you brave souls to jump into the breach and just say, you know what, you've done enough, Patrick. You rest, and I'll just jump on the grenade. No, none of you. All right. So as I assumed, it's both myself and Shireen. Here he comes.
Nominate Patrick and Shireen to chair and vice chair respectively. DePietro.
Waiting.
I second the nomination.
Just killing time, waiting for it. All right, let's go down the list. The list of people keeps changing, and I didn't write anything down this time, so I'm just going to run down it. So Vamosi.
Vamosi is yes, but I do believe you guys have to accept your nominations first.
Oh, I accept. Shireen, do you accept?
I do accept. Thank you.
Very
Vamosi,
well, then emphatically yes from Vamosi.
Olson.
Olson, yes.
Lamb.
Lamb, yes.
Diaz.
Diaz is yes.
Petro.
Yes.
And DiNardo.
DiNardo is yes.
Thank you all. I'm a yes too, actually. Helen is a yes. Let's do this again. All right, so with that, everyone's back in seat. As far as committees, there's just, like I said, there's just a few pieces that I have to fill out to submit back to Danielle in the town clerk's office. So I'll do that tonight so that everything will be in place for the July 1st start. Essentially, that's the revolving fiscal and or appointment start time. Tim, good ask though about school planning. I don't know that I've ever been reappointed in the time that I've been on it. It might be just, because it's not specifically a board or subcommittee that's specific to the town. It's for the project. It might be different, but I will ask. It's a good call out.
Yeah, I mean, where it's temporary, I'm not sure because it is a project committee, so maybe that's the reason why.
Could be. It's a good ask though. All right, with that, the only other thing we have in front of us is we have meeting minutes, obviously, for today. There is one other meeting minute that's not included in this just because I realized I'm the one who has to write it out, which is the one from our quick pre-town meeting. So I will actually do that for our next meeting, whenever that may be. So we just have that final one to check off. But with that, do we have anyone that has any edits or changes or discussion points on those 3 meeting minutes? I think it's 3, right? For April 14th, April 27th, and March 9th. Stunned silence means no. So with that, I'll wait for Mike to come on camera again, and we can again. This is just a vote to include the meeting minutes in all the various different town chapters and file them. If we can vote them in again as a slate, all 3 at once, if needed.
Motion to vote the 3 minutes in as a slate.
Beat you, Mike.
I had
Second,
to.
DePietro.
Here it is. How the mighty have fallen.
No, I'll let him have
All
his-
right, let's go down the list. Thank you, Brian. DiNardo.
DiNardo is a yes.
Lamb.
Lamb is yes.
Diaz.
Diaz is yes.
Vamosi.
Timothy Vamosi is yes.
Petro. Now he's on mute. We'll come back to you. Olson.
Olson, yes.
Petro.
Yes.
There he is. And I'm a yes. All right. So as I said, there's still one remaining that we will come back to the next time we meet. So with that, the only other business is if there's anything you guys have to talk about, any questions you have. I know that we've been going back and forth on sort of like some soft training off again and on again, but I wanted to open it up to see if there's anything else out there that you guys are not sure of or you have questions on that we can answer. And then, like I said, essentially, because there's not a lot of town business that's necessary from a budgetary standpoint, because we've approved the town budgets, they kick off in 10 days. And then there's usually not a huge amount of stress or necessity for FinCom to meet. We typically come back together right around the August or September timeframe, which just happens to coincide because it's nearly impossible to find a quorum during the summer. So this will probably be the last time we meet until that timeframe. So with that, are there any other questions or anything else that anyone wants to cover before we adjourn?
Yes, I do have something. So I'm wondering if we can, for this fiscal year, institute a check-in. Maybe this is already in place and I'm not aware. A check-in with our various clusters. So maybe it's quarterly or maybe it's like every 2 months, as opposed to waiting until it's February or March to actually meet with them and chat about their budgets. So the finance director, I'm not sure how it's done in town, but they're supposed to be preparing financials monthly, which I'm sure they do,
Mhm.
and probably send those out to the departments as well, the department heads. And so I'm wondering if we can meet with them, um, maybe monthly, maybe quarterly, just to check in and see how things are doing and if they're on track with their spending, if there's anything that they would like to report out. And it's just another layer of accountability. And maybe if we don't have time to meet, maybe it's just sending an email to them, just checking in to see how they're doing. And maybe we also have a few standard questions, maybe like 2 or 3 questions that we're asking, again, from a accountability standpoint. What do
I
you
think this
guys
ties, I'm sorry. I was gonna say, I think this ties in directly with what Kelly was asking me earlier, which is essentially, do we have a template for that communication, for that engagement? I'm going to say 2 things. Number one, I don't think it's a bad idea. I think it's a good idea. I think that we've been super reactionary for years. This push that came in right around the same time that I was first coming onto the board, the chair or the co-chair and the chair at the time, this was their idea. They definitely did a great job of pushing this out there to do that outreach and have a little bit more engagement. I know the only sort of thing that is the pause that I have is that I know that Connor has asked we do not engage, essentially to ask them those questions before a specific time frame or before they're aware we're going to. But I think it's a good point. I think if it's something we can set up as more of a check-in as opposed to a give me everything, then it might be actually easier. It might be more palatable for those various different departments. And to be fair, I think the first one is just an intro in most cases, right? Like, hey, I am the FinCom representative that's aligned to your department. I want to make sure you know who I am. I want to open up the door of communication. And then would it be okay with you if I reach out to you every 3 months just to check in and see how things are going from a spending standpoint, any issues you've raised, et cetera? So I would say, yes, I think it's a really good idea. I think we can do it. Let's make sure that Connor and the department heads are on board with it so they don't feel like we're coming out of nowhere. But yes, I think it's something we definitely should circulate. Anybody else want to comment or ask questions on that?
Yeah, I just want to add to that. So Shireen, maybe you and I can work on this over the summer, but I would love to see some systems and structures put in place around this, because I think for being a new person jumping on the committee, you kind of like just jump in and you try to feel your way out. So if we had some sort of like timeline and the way that things work, that we could almost like a legacy document of how the committee runs, that would be really helpful for anyone that is, that is voted in eventually. So you can use it in the future. The other thing I want to mention is I saw through social media, one of my friends went through Citizens Academy, and I was not aware that they were running that. But I think that is something that I would love to do to get a better understanding of each department's role and what it is that they do and don't do. And so that would be something. I know we have to go to Connor for this, and I kind of put it in his ear at the Juneteenth event, but really I would love for the new members to have the opportunity to go through something like that.
It's a good point you make, because there's also, I think it's different then, but there's also a specific finance committee sort of essentially seminar thing that you can attend that typically we get sent something. I didn't get anything this year, which is weird, but
I did get some, I did some research on the MMA, and I was actually going to attend, and then something popped up. But yes, we are all members, I believe.
You should be invited if we have your email. We submit your information.
Yeah.
So you might have something floating around in your inbox that might have gotten spammed. That's what I assume happened to mine this year.
Yes.
But that's another thing you could look into to say exactly that, right? And I know it's sort of like trying to drink from the fire hose, and we try to give you guys, we've tried to figure out a way to sort of give you something more sustainable. The information that Dottie had put together, I thought was a good first step. But then the learn by doing aspect, I think it's hard for some people, right? Where they're like, oh, we do this literally twice a year. I don't feel like I have enough to really dig into. So I totally hear that from both of you guys. I think it's a great idea. And I think if you guys want to put something together, if you guys want to take that on, the two of you, and you put something together and just sort of, hey, here's what we're thinking. I think we can all facilitate some of that assistance. We can all add some bits and pieces. You know, Tim, Mike, myself, we've been here for a while. We can probably fill in some gaps. And then I think Connor obviously is a huge valuable resource. And I don't know if he's ever not busy, but we can find a time that he probably has, you know, maybe 40 minutes of valuable Connor time to have him throw at it and see if we can get him to help us out. I think it's a really good idea too. Awesome. All right.
I can jump in too there. I know in the past we used to receive quarterly or bi-monthlies on the you know, plus minus percentage on where they are in their budget for the year. So we have had that in the past. They usually came through Wendy Nightingale, where she would actually send us, you know, how we get usually before the town hall meetings, the month or two before, we start seeing those roll in.
Right.
And it's simply because it's hard for the percentages to change significantly in a month. You know, sometimes it does, some departments, especially like the schools, DPW, fire, police, those ones, because of storms and whatnot. So you might see big number changes there. But a lot of times those don't really have significant swings that we've seen in the past. And then meeting with department heads regularly, I think it comes down to what your cluster is. You know, when I first got on, I had the library, and you know, I could have met with her every month just because it was fun. But at the same point, it wasn't really you know, financially necessary at the time. That being said, the schools, however, I don't think you're going to be able to figure out in one meeting how that budget's going to go. That one with the schools, I was there probably every other month and attending the school committee meeting, because that's where the deeds were done. So a lot of decisions were done there. So I think there's opportunities above and beyond boards and committees. You just have to, like the school committee meetings were a great resource because a lot of things happen there. COVID obviously made it a little bit difficult and easier in some respects. You can attend more meetings on Zoom, but once we go back in person, making that time crunch is a little difficult. So ECAT was a really good resource for me too in the past. So I think those are all things that are helpful for the resources that we're looking into. And it's really kind of, like I said, the budgets that really move the most that I've seen are DPW, schools, fire, and police are probably the three that are the most mobile up and down, just because the weather really hits it.
Okay, thank you.
So I think this is all great. I think step one for me, I'll ping Connor and make sure that you know, this is something that we can at least get it on his table to say, hey, this is what we're looking for, right? Part and parcel of it is that we're not going to wait till February to start engaging people if there's something that's coming up now. But I also think, you know, to Tim's point, I think my first cluster, like I think IT was one of them, and the IT budget is very built, right? It's very solid. They know where the spending is going to come. That spending might not come until October. It might be all done in July, but it's very sort of feast or famine. But yeah, great example, right? Some clusters are vast changes every time. Some it's like, yeah, we're waiting. We're going to spend this at some point, but until then, we're just sitting on it, right? So I'll reach out to Connor as a first step. At the same time, if you guys want to meet, set up a time to engage and see if you can build something out, at least just a framework that we can start to fill in the bits and pieces as to how to best sort of leave a legacy behind. I think that's a great idea. And then part of that, I think, will be, let's take this year, right, this upcoming year of, let's assume quarterly check-ins and say, hey, we've got this new attempt to have a better understanding for someone's getting voted in, right? When someone comes on brand new, what do we do next? What are the best steps? How do we best engage with the department? What's the template that's been used in the past, et cetera? And then that way it doesn't feel as daunting for people to first roll in.
And Kelly, in terms of the Citizens Academy too, I think if everybody, when they meet with their department head, reaches out and says, do you mind us swinging by as a committee on such and such a date? You know, I think there's probably a way to do that informally too. I like the idea of setting it up formally for a legacy plan. I think that's a really good idea. But I think we could probably pull that off this year informally. You know, hey, we'll do a finance committee meeting on, you know, this Wednesday night, but then maybe next Wednesday after that, we'll take a ride up to Foxborough and see STEMREC, or we'll meet at the firehouse and meet with the fire chief there. You know, those kinds of things that probably can be done informally this year in preparation to set it up for a formal future use.
I think that's a great idea. That's a
Only
great
there
idea.
was some sort of captain we could reach out to that could help us with that fire department association. I mean, you know, you can't have everything you wish for, but I mean,
Gotta milk it.
if only.
I know a guy.
You know,
You
guy?
know a guy.
Oh,
You know
God.
a guy. Good. 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 Good.
All right, guys. Any other questions? Any other comments on that before we before Mike kicks us out of here because he's already out on camera? Nothing. And then also, hold on. The only other thing I'll say is that if anyone else has any questions on this, or if you have any other thoughts, feel free to email me as well. Like, as long as we're not deliberating on, this is why I BCC you guys all the time. If we're not deliberating on anything that's coming in front of us, we can obviously communicate back and forth from a one-off standpoint. But if we all are on the same sort of, you know, email chain and we're all replying all, that's where we run into the open meeting law files. So I'm happy to disseminate any information you guys want to send to me. But then the best way is then, again, I'll communicate it back out. But if you're on BCC, you can ask me questions and come back to me, and then I can make sure everyone's on the same page. What was that,
Hey,
Mike?
Mike, where are you?
Where am I? Just walking around the neighborhood.
Nice. This is the best way to have a meeting.
I know.
And Patrick timed it perfectly to stop talking right when the car drove by. But motion to adjourn, DePietro.
Do I have a second?
Diaz, second.
All right. DiNardo,
Leonardo is a yes.
Lamb,
Lamb is yes.
Diaz,
Diaz is yes.
Vamosi,
Most yes.
Petro,
DePietro, yes.
and Olson.
Olson, yes.
Thanks, guys. I will be back in touch with some more information as I find it, and have a great summer if I don't see you.
Take care, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Well.